Black girl spent her last $8 helping Hell's Angel. Next day, 100 bikers brought a life-changing gift. Before we start today's story, comment below where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss what's next. Nora Hayes stood in the dark gas station parking lot, clutching 8 wrinkled dollars in her hand. It was all she had left in the world. Just $8, her daughter Ella's breakfast money for tomorrow morning. She stared at the bills under the harsh yellow lights, feeling the cool night air press against her tired face. Her feet hurt, her stomach growled, but mostly, her heart ached with worry. Then she heard a sound. A deep, scary sound. Someone gasping for air. She looked up quickly. There, near one of the gas pumps, was a huge man lying on the ground beside a shiny black motorcycle. He was very tall, maybe 6'3", with a thick gray beard and tattoos covering both his arms. He wore a black leather vest with red letters that said Hell's Angels. Nora had heard of them before. Everyone said they were dangerous bikers. Trouble. The kind of people you stayed away from. But right now, this scary-looking man was not shouting or fighting. He was clutching his chest, his face pale and gray, his eyes wide with fear. He was dying. From the doorway, the gas station worker shouted, "Don't help him. Those biker guys are nothing but trouble." Nora froze. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She looked at the man on the ground, then down at her $8. She thought about her little girl Ella, sleeping at home, dreaming of pancakes or maybe eggs for breakfast. But now, if she spent that money, there would be no breakfast at all. Still, she couldn't just stand there. She couldn't walk away from someone dying. She ran inside, grabbed a bottle of water and a small bottle of aspirin from the shelf, and dropped her last $8 on the counter. The worker rolled his eyes but took the money. She ran back outside as fast as she could. She didn't know it yet, but that moment, that one choice, would change her whole life. The next morning, 100 motorcycles would roar down her street, engines growling like thunder. But to understand why, we need to go back to the morning before everything changed. Nora's alarm went off at 5 a.m., just like every other day. The loud beeping filled the small, messy apartment where she lived with 6-year-old Ella. Nora rubbed her eyes, got out of bed, and stretched her sore back. The apartment was tiny, with cracked walls and a leaky faucet, but it was theirs. It was home. She walked into the kitchen and opened the cupboard. Almost empty. She checked the fridge, only half a carton of milk and a box of cereal with just a few crumbs left. She poured what was left into Ella's favorite bowl, the one with a pink bunny on it, and used every drop of milk. A few minutes later, Ella came shuffling out in her pajama pants, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Morning, Mommy," she said softly. "Morning, baby," Nora said, kissing the top of her head. Ella sat down to eat her cereal, humming quietly to herself. Nora didn't pour a bowl for herself. There wasn't enough. Her stomach growled, but she smiled anyway. This was life now, counting every dollar, every crumb, every drop of milk. Always trying to stretch a little bit more. Nora worked 2 jobs. In the mornings, she worked at the laundromat folding people's clothes for $11 an hour. At night, she worked at a diner, serving food to truck drivers and tired travelers, hoping for tips. Her car had broken down 3 weeks ago, so she walked everywhere now. Her sneakers had holes in them, and sometimes, when it rained, her socks got soaked through. She was 3 days behind on rent. Her landlord had already threatened to kick her out. Ella's asthma inhaler needed to be refilled, but it cost $60. She didn't have it. The electricity bill was taped to the fridge with a red overdue stamp. But Nora didn't complain. Her grandmother had raised her to believe that kindness mattered more than anything. "Kindness costs nothing, baby," Grandma used to say. And sometimes, that's all we got to give. So Nora smiled. She greeted every customer. She said, "Thank you," even when people were rude. Every night before bed, she wrote down 3 things she was thankful for in a little blue notebook, even on bad days. That Tuesday started like every other day. Nora walked Ella next door to the neighbor's apartment before school. Then she headed to the laundromat. She folded clothes for 8 hours straight. Jeans, towels, sheets, shirts. Over and over. Her back hurt, but she kept going. At 2 p.m., she clocked out and walked to the diner. Her next shift didn't start until 3 o'clock, but she liked to get there early to rest and drink some water before the rush began. "Hey, honey, you look tired," said Tasha, one of her co-workers. Tasha was older, with kind eyes and gray hair tied in a bun. "I'm always tired," Nora said, smiling weakly. "You work so hard for that little girl," Tasha said. "But you've got to take care of yourself too." Nora nodded, even though she knew she couldn't. Taking care of herself cost money she didn't have. The diner was packed that night. Truckers ordered coffee by the pot. Teenagers laughed in the corner booth. A family with 3 kids left a mess under the table. Nora smiled through all of it. She kept moving, even when her feet ached. By 10 p.m., her shift was finally over. She went to the back room, sat down, and counted her tips. $23 tonight. She added that to the $8.47 she'd saved from yesterday. That made $31.47. She set aside $23 for rent and folded the rest, $8, neatly in her pocket. That was it. All she had for Ella's food tomorrow. Then she started her 2-mile walk home. The streets were quiet and dark. Nora hugged her jacket tighter. Her breath came out in white puffs in the cool air. She was so tired her legs felt heavy. She decided to cut through the gas station parking lot. It was faster, and she needed to use the restroom anyway. She didn't know that choice would change everything. When she came back outside, the parking lot was almost empty. The lights above flickered and buzzed. It was just past 11 p.m. That's when she saw him, the big man on the motorcycle. He was standing at first, breathing hard, one hand on the bike seat, the other clutching his chest. Then he stumbled. His knees buckled. He gasped for air and dropped to the ground. Nora froze. Every part of her body told her to run, to go home, to protect herself and her daughter. But then the man stopped breathing. His chest wasn't moving. "Hey!" She shouted toward the gas station. "Call 911. The gas station worker came to the door, smoking a cigarette. "Lady, don't. That's a Hell's Angel. He's probably high. You don't want to get mixed up in that. He's having a heart attack." Nora yelled, her voice shaking. The man shrugged. "Not my problem." An older man wearing a trucker hat walked out of the store with a bag of chips. He saw the biker on the ground and frowned. "Miss, don't get involved," he said kindly. "You've got a kid, right? I can tell. Go home to her. Guys like that are dangerous." Nora pulled her arm away from him. "A man is dying," she said. He muttered something and drove off. The gas station worker went back inside. Now it was just her and the biker. Nora looked at him again. His face was gray. His lips were turning blue. She remembered her grandmother, how she had collapsed on a city sidewalk when Nora was just 12. People walked past her, not stopping. By the time someone called for help, it was too late. Nora dropped to her knees beside the man. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes flickered open for a second. He tried to speak but only whispered, "Heart, meds, forgot." Nora's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. 1 bar of signal. 10% battery. She dialed 911. The call didn't go through. "Please, please," she whispered, pressing redial. The call dropped again. "Damn it," she cried. She jumped to her feet, ran into the gas station, and shouted, "Call an ambulance right now. He's dying." The worker sighed but picked up the phone behind the counter. Nora didn't wait. She grabbed a bottle of aspirin and a bottle of water. "How much?" she demanded. $6.50, he said. She pulled out her last $8, Ella's breakfast money, and slapped it on the counter. He gave her $1.50 in change, but she didn't care. She ran back outside. The biker was barely conscious. Nora knelt beside him. She opened the aspirin bottle and shook 2 pills into her hand. "You need to chew these," she said softly. "Come on, chew." He opened his mouth slowly. She placed the pills on his tongue, held the water bottle to his lips, and helped him take a sip. "Stay with me," she said, her hand firm on his shoulder. He grabbed her hand weakly. "What's your name?" he whispered. "Nora. Nora Hayes." He coughed. "Nora, you saved my life." "Not yet," she said. "But I'm trying." Far away, sirens began to wail. Relief washed over her. Help was coming. Then, suddenly, the deep rumble of a motorcycle filled the air. Another biker pulled into the lot, younger, maybe in his 30s, with a short beard and a leather vest like the other man's. He jumped off the bike and ran toward them. "Grayson! Oh my God, Grayson!" he shouted, dropping to his knees beside the older man. He looked at Nora, eyes wide. "You helped him." "He needed help," she said quietly. The young man's face softened. "Most people would have just walked away," he said. "They don't see people like us as worth saving." Nora didn't answer. She just held Grayson's shoulder until the ambulance pulled up, lights flashing red and blue across the parking lot. The paramedics rushed out. One knelt beside Grayson. "Did you give him aspirin?" "Yes," Nora said. "2 tablets, about 3 minutes ago." The paramedic nodded. "Smart move. You probably saved his life." They lifted Grayson onto a stretcher. He reached out and grabbed Nora's wrist weakly. His gray eyes met hers. "Tell them Grayson sent you," he whispered before they loaded him into the ambulance. Nora blinked, confused. "Tell who?" she asked softly. The younger biker stood up and wiped his eyes. "My name's Ryder," he said, pulling a small white card from his wallet. He handed it to her. The card had nothing on it but a phone number and a tiny crown with wings drawn above it. "Grayson's going to want to thank you," Ryder said. "Call this number tomorrow." Nora looked at the card in her hand. "Who is he?" she asked. Ryder smiled a little, but his eyes looked serious. "Someone important," he said. "Someone who never forgets kindness." The ambulance doors shut, and the sirens faded into the night. The gas station worker stood in the doorway, shaking his head as if Nora had done something foolish. But Nora didn't feel foolish. She looked down at the crumpled $50 still in her pocket, then up at the stars. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel hopeless. She had saved a life. She didn't know that by tomorrow morning, her life, and Ella's, would never be the same again. Nora stood all alone in the parking lot. She had only $1.50 in her pocket and no idea what she had just done. The cold wind brushed against her face as she started walking home in the dark, her shoes making soft sounds on the empty road. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. The gas station worker's words kept playing in her head. "Those guys are nothing but trouble." But Nora didn't see trouble. She saw a man who needed help. Did she make a mistake? She didn't know yet. But she was about to find out. The paramedics worked quickly. One put a mask on Grayson's face to help him breathe. The other checked his heartbeat and pulse with a small machine that beeped softly in the night. Nora stood back, her hands still shaking because she was scared and full of adrenaline. She could still feel the weight of the aspirin bottle she'd pulled from her bag. Ryder, Grayson's friend, walked back and forth, running his hands through his hair again and again. He looked so worried that Nora could almost feel his fear. "Is he going to be okay?" Ryder asked one of the paramedics, his voice trembling. "We got him stable," one paramedic said. "But if this lady hadn't given him the aspirin when she did, things would be very bad right now." Ryder turned to look at Nora. His eyes were red, like he had been crying, and his jaw was tight. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "Grayson isn't just anybody. He's everything to us." Nora didn't know what to say. "I just did what anyone would do," she said softly. Ryder shook his head firmly. "No. Most people would have walked away, especially from someone who looks like him." The paramedics lifted Grayson into the ambulance. Before they closed the doors, Grayson moved a little. He pulled the oxygen mask down just enough to look at Nora. "Thank you," he whispered. She nodded quickly, too shy to speak. The ambulance doors closed, and the sirens wailed as it sped away into the night. Ryder stood there for a long moment, watching the red and blue lights fade down the road. Then he turned to Nora. "You got kids?" he asked suddenly. Nora blinked. The question surprised her. "Yeah, a daughter. Her name's Ella. She's 6. Ryder nodded slowly, his eyes softening. "Are you working?" Nora hesitated. She didn't know this man, but he sounded kind, so she answered truthfully. "2 jobs. We're managing." Ryder looked down at her old shoes with a small hole in one sole. He noticed her worn-out jeans and tired eyes. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I bet." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick wallet. It was stuffed with money. He started to count some bills. "Let me give you something," he said. "For the aspirin, for your time, for helping." Nora quickly stepped back. "No, please," she said. "I said no. I didn't do it for money." Ryder stopped counting and looked at her carefully. "Then why?" "Because he needed help. That's all," she said. Ryder slowly put the money back into his wallet. He looked at her face like he wanted to remember it forever. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and took out a small white card. There was a picture of a crown with wings and a phone number printed on it. "Grayson will want to thank you himself," Ryder said. "Tomorrow afternoon, please call this number." Nora took the card, thinking she'd probably throw it away when she got home. "I'll think about it," she said. "Please," Ryder said again, his voice sounding almost desperate. "Just call. That's all I ask." She nodded and slipped the card into her pocket. Ryder got on his motorcycle. Before he rode away, he looked at her one last time. "You're a good person, Nora Hayes. Don't ever let anyone tell you differently." Then he started the engine, the sound roaring through the empty night, and he was gone. Nora stood there in the gas station parking lot. The bright lights buzzed above her. Everything felt strange, like she was dreaming. She started walking home, 2 long miles in the dark, with only $1.50 in her pocket. Her mind was full of questions. What had just happened? Who was Grayson? Why did Ryder look at her like she'd done something amazing? All she'd done was help a man. But the way they reacted, it was like no one had ever helped them before. She thought about what the gas station worker had said. "Those guys are trouble." She thought about the truck driver who told her to walk away. Maybe they were right. Maybe she had made a big mistake. Maybe tomorrow she'd wake up and regret it. But she couldn't stop thinking about Grayson lying on the ground, his face pale, his chest not moving. If she had walked away, he would be dead. That was the truth. And she didn't know how to regret saving a life. When Nora finally got home, it was almost 1 in the morning. Her neighbor, Mrs. Lane, was asleep on the couch, and little Ella was curled up beside her. The TV was on low, showing a soft blue glow. Nora gently woke Mrs. Lane. "I'm home. Thank you so much." Mrs. Lane yawned and smiled sleepily. "No problem, dear," she said before heading back to her apartment. Nora lifted Ella into her arms and carried her to bed. "Mommy," Ella mumbled. "Sure. Go back to sleep, baby," Nora whispered. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too." She tucked the blanket around her and kissed her forehead. Then Nora walked into the kitchen and sat down at the small table. She took out the business card and looked at it under the dim light. The crown with wings sparkled faintly. She flipped it over. Nothing on the back, just the phone number. Who were these people? She looked at the few coins on the table. Her $1.50. Tomorrow, Ella would wake up hungry, and Nora would have to tell her they only had crackers and a banana left. She had spent her last $8 on a stranger. Nora pulled out her small journal from the window ledge. Her grandmother had taught her to write 3 things she was thankful for each night, no matter what. She opened to a blank page and wrote, "Ella is healthy. I helped someone tonight. Tomorrow is a new day." She closed the book and looked at the card again before setting it on her nightstand. Then she lay down, exhausted, and closed her eyes. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. Across town, in a hospital room filled with quiet beeps and soft lights, Grayson was awake. He told Ryder, "Gather everyone." Nora didn't know that her name was being spoken in rooms she'd never seen by people she'd never met. She didn't know her life was about to change forever. All she knew was that she had done the right thing, and sometimes that's all you can do, even if it costs you everything. Nora's alarm rang at 5 a.m. Like always, she got up even though her whole body hurt from the day before. She opened the kitchen cabinet. One banana. A few crackers. That was it. She cut the banana in half and arranged the crackers on a plate. Ella came out in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, Mommy. What's for breakfast?" "A special breakfast today," Nora said, smiling. "Banana and crackers, your favorite." Ella didn't complain. She never did. She climbed into her chair and started eating slowly. Nora didn't make anything for herself because there wasn't enough. She just watched her daughter eat, trying not to think about how empty the cabinets were. Then came a knock on the door. Nora frowned. It was barely 7 in the morning. Who would be knocking this early? She opened the door and saw Mrs. Carter, her neighbor from down the hall. Mrs. Carter was a tall woman in her 60s, with kind but serious eyes. "See, baby," Mrs. Carter said, crossing her arms. "We need to talk." "Good morning, Mrs. Carter. Is everything okay?" Mrs. Carter stepped closer and lowered her voice. "I heard you helped one of those biker thugs last night. One of those Hell's Angels." Nora's stomach dropped. "He was having a heart attack, Mrs. Carter. I had to help." "Child," Mrs. Carter said, shaking her head, "those Hell's Angels are criminals. Drugs, fights, all kinds of bad stuff. What were you thinking? You've got Ella to think about." Nora swallowed hard. "He was a person who needed help. That's all I saw." Mrs. Carter sighed deeply. "You're too kind, Nora. That kindness is going to get you hurt one day. Mark my words." Then she turned and walked away. Nora closed the door slowly and leaned against it. Her hands were shaking. Maybe Mrs. Carter was right. Maybe she had made a mistake. She looked at Ella, still eating her crackers and banana, smiling like everything was okay. "Finish up, baby," Nora said softly. "Time to get ready for school." Later that morning at the laundromat, Nora folded clothes without really thinking. Her body was there, but her mind wasn't. Mrs. Carter's words kept echoing, "That kindness will get you hurt." Her co-worker, Tasha, noticed. "You okay, honey? You look like you didn't sleep a wink." Nora hesitated, then told her everything. The gas station, the biker, the heart attack, the aspirin, spending her last $8. Tasha's eyes grew wide. "You helped a Hell's Angel? Girl, you're braver than me." "Or dumber," Nora muttered. "Mrs. Carter said I was stupid." Tasha reached out and squeezed her hand. "Sweetheart, you followed your heart. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about that." "But what if she's right?" Nora whispered. "What if I brought trouble into my life?" If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe and share your favorite part in the comments below. And don't forget to drop a heart to show your support. Tasha looked at her kindly. "You saved a man's life, Nora. That's never wrong. Good things come from good hearts, even if it takes a while." Nora smiled weakly. She wanted to believe that. During her break, she took out the white business card again. She stared at the little crown with wings, running her thumb over it. After a moment, she pulled out her phone and typed a message. "Hi, this is Nora Hayes. Ryder gave me this number." She pressed send before she could change her mind. Only a few seconds later, her phone rang. The screen said, "Unknown number." Nora froze. She didn't answer. When the call went to voicemail, she listened. "Nora, it's Ryder. Grayson wants to meet you today. Can you come to Murphy's Diner on 5th Street at 3 p.m.? It's important. Please." Nora's heart started beating faster. Tasha leaned over. "What did they say?" They want to meet me this afternoon, Nora said quietly. Then go, Tasha said, smiling. What's the worst that could happen? Maybe free coffee. Nora laughed a little, but her stomach was full of butterflies. She was scared. She finished work at 2 p.m. She could make it to the diner by 3. But what would people think? What would Mrs. Carter say if she found out? What if this really was a mistake? When Nora left the laundromat that afternoon, she noticed something strange. 2 motorcycles were parked across the street. 2 men wearing leather vests were sitting on them, watching her quietly. When she looked their way, they both nodded politely. Then they started their engines and rode off. Her heart raced. What had she walked into? Nora took the bus to 5th Street. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking the whole ride. The city rushed by outside the window. Stores, houses, people walking their dogs. But all she could think about was what she was walking into. When the bus turned the corner, she saw it, Murphy's Diner, and dozens of motorcycles parked neatly outside. Chrome and black paint shone in the afternoon sun. The bus stopped. For a second, Nora thought about staying in her seat, but something inside her told her to go. She stood up and stepped off the bus. The sidewalk was full of bikers. Big men with tattoos and gray beards. Strong women with tough eyes and leather jackets. They all wore vests with patches that matched the logo on Ryder's card, the crown with wings. They weren't loud or scary. They were quiet. Waiting. As Nora walked past, one by one, the bikers nodded to her. One older man even tipped his cap respectfully. Nora's heart pounded. What did that mean? She reached the door of the diner, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. Every booth and table was full of bikers. The whole diner went silent. Every single person turned to look at her. Ryder came out from the back, smiling gently. Nora, he said. Thank you for coming. Grayson's waiting. As they walked through the diner, every biker she passed stood up quietly, watching her with respect. And something amazing, something she couldn't yet understand, was about to happen next. The bikers stood up, one by one. As Nora walked by, they all rose to their feet. It looked like a wave moving through the room. She didn't know why they did it, but it felt special and powerful. Ryder, one of the bikers, smiled gently at her and guided her toward a booth in the corner. There, Grayson sat waiting. He looked much better than he had the night before. When he saw Nora, he stood up slowly, holding his chest as if it still hurt a little. Nora Hayes, he said kindly. Please sit. Nora slid into the booth, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Grayson looked at her carefully, studying her face as though trying to remember every detail. How are you feeling? He asked. I'm fine, Nora said quietly. How are you? Grayson gave a small laugh, half grateful and half in disbelief. The doctor said if you hadn't acted fast, I'd be dead. It was a heart attack. Nora looked down. I'm just glad you're okay. Grayson leaned forward. Ryder told me everything. You wouldn't take money. You have a daughter. You work 2 jobs. And you used your last $8 to save my life. Nora blushed and looked away. It wasn't about money, she said softly. I know, Grayson said. That's exactly why I wanted to meet you. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small photograph. He slid it across the table. In the picture, a younger version of Grayson stood next to a woman. Between them was a little girl, maybe 7 years old, with shining eyes and a huge smile. That's my daughter, Grayson said, his voice breaking a little. Her name was Ava. Nora's eyes filled with tears. Was? She asked gently. She was 7, Grayson said. She had leukemia. We couldn't afford her treatments in time. By the time we got the money, it was too late. Nora felt her heart ache. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Grayson nodded slowly. After she died, I made a promise. Anyone who shows real kindness, especially when they don't have much themselves, I'll help them. That's what Ava would have wanted. Nora swallowed hard. She didn't know what to say. Then Grayson looked her in the eyes. Tomorrow morning, something's going to happen. Don't be scared. Just trust me. What do you mean? She asked, her heart racing a little. Grayson smiled sadly. You'll see. He stood up, leaving money on the table. Ryder followed him out. The other bikers watched silently. An older man with gray in his beard leaned over toward Nora and said quietly, You did good, miss. Real good. Nora had no idea what he meant. That evening, back on her street, people whispered and gossiped. Mrs. Carter stood on her porch with Mr. Alvarez. That girl Nora is mixed up with those bikers now, Mrs. Carter said. I told her nothing good would come of it. Mr. Alvarez frowned. Those biker gangs. We can't have them here. Hell's Angels or whatever they call themselves. A young mother walking by stopped and said, I'm keeping my kids inside tomorrow. The rumor spread quickly. By dinner time, the whole neighborhood was buzzing with worry. Parents warned their children. Doors stayed locked. Curtains stayed shut. Everyone was afraid of what might happen next. Nora didn't know any of this. She rode the bus home with a heavy feeling in her chest. What if she had made a mistake? What if those bikers brought trouble to her quiet street? When she woke up the next morning, there was a deep rumbling sound outside, like thunder rolling across the ground. The walls shook. She jumped out of bed and ran to the window. Her eyes widened. The street was filled with motorcycles, hundreds of them, shiny and loud. The bikers stood in neat rows, their black vests gleaming in the morning light. Oh my God, she whispered. Little Ella ran into the room. Mommy, why are there so many motorcycles? Nora had no answer. She quickly threw on her clothes, grabbed Ella's hand, and went outside. The whole neighborhood had come out too. But instead of being curious, people were frightened. Mrs. Carter was already on her porch talking into her phone. Yes, police, she said. There's a gang on our street. Mr. Alvarez ran up to Nora, his face red with anger. What did you do? Why are they here? More neighbors came out, shouting. You brought a gang here. We have kids. Ella clung to her mother's leg. Mommy, I'm scared. Nora held her tight. It's okay, baby, she whispered, even though her hands were shaking. Then Ryder stepped forward from the crowd of bikers and raised his hands. Folks, we're not here to cause trouble. Then why are you here? Someone yelled. We're here to help one of your own, Ryder said. Nora saved a life 2 nights ago. Now we're here to save hers. Everyone froze. A large trailer truck pulled up and parked. The back door opened, and bikers began unloading big boxes. Ryder spoke again. My name is Ryder. I'm a volunteer with Ava's Legacy, a group that helps struggling families. The man Nora saved, Grayson, is our founder. He started it after his daughter, Ava, died of leukemia. The crowd murmured. A man in the back stepped forward. Wait, Ava's Legacy? You helped my cousin Javier in Detroit. You paid for his therapy after he came home from the army. Another woman gasped. You paid for my son's heart surgery. Someone else shouted. You saved my grandma's house. The people who had been scared a moment ago now looked amazed. Mrs. Carter's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, Lord. We judged you all wrong. Then Grayson stepped out of the truck. He moved slowly, but proudly. The crowd made way for him. I get it, Grayson said, his voice calm and deep. You saw our jackets, our tattoos, and our bikes, and you got scared. That's human. But this woman right here didn't see that. She saw a man who needed help and didn't hesitate. He pointed to Nora. She used her last $8, her daughter's breakfast money, to save my life. The street went silent. You could hear the wind move. She didn't know who I was, Grayson continued. She didn't care. She just saw a person in need. That's the kind of world I want to build. A world where people see people, not stereotypes, not fear. An old man, Mr. Bennett, stepped forward. I judged you by your jacket, not your heart, he said softly. I was wrong. Grayson shook his hand. We all make mistakes, sir. One by one, neighbors came up, shaking hands and apologizing. Mr. Alvarez walked up to Nora and said, I'm sorry I yelled at you. You were braver than all of us. Nora smiled shyly, her eyes wet. Grayson turned to her. You gave me a second chance. Let me give you one. He handed her a white envelope. Inside was a check for $25,000. For your rent, bills, whatever you need, he said. Nora's mouth fell open. She couldn't speak. There's more, Grayson said, handing her a letter. You've been offered a job with Ava's Legacy. Community Outreach Coordinator. $52,000 a year, full benefits, and health insurance. You start in 2 weeks. Nora's knees gave out, and she sank to the ground, sobbing. Mommy, why are you crying? Ella asked. Happy tears, baby, Nora whispered. Everyone on the street started clapping. Some cried. The bikers revved their engines in joy. The deep rumble filled the air like thunder. Mrs. Carter ran over and hugged Nora. Baby, you showed us how to be better people. I'm so sorry. Grayson knelt beside her and handed her a car key. We bought your car from Impound, he said. It's fixed and waiting for you. Nora looked up, tears running down her face. Why are you doing all this? Grayson's eyes were shiny. Because 20 years ago, my daughter died because we didn't have enough money. I swore I'd never let that happen to another family. You saved me with your last $8. You didn't ask for anything. That's who the world needs, people like you. Ryder came up beside them. Come on, he said gently. There's more to show you. He led Nora to the big trailer. Inside were boxes of furniture, groceries, clothes, toys, and even a new bed for Ella. Nora gasped. This is too much. It's not enough, Grayson said. But it's a start. Neighbors who had been scared earlier now started helping unload. Mr. Alvarez carried boxes. Mrs. Carter directed where things should go. The young mother who had kept her kids inside now brought them out to help carry toys. The whole street came alive with kindness. By the time they were done, Nora's small apartment looked brand new. A sturdy new couch, a solid wooden table, soft beds, warm blankets, and food in the fridge. Ella ran from room to room shouting, Mommy, look, I have books and a desk. Nora stood in the middle of it all, her hands on her mouth, tears falling again. Grayson sat on the couch and patted the seat beside him. Sit, he said. Let's talk. Nora sat down, still dazed. I want to explain the job, Grayson said. We help families in need. I need someone who understands struggle, someone who's lived it. Someone like you. I'll do anything, Nora said. I just want to help. Grayson smiled. I know. That's why you're hired. He showed her some blueprints. We're going to build a community center right here in your neighborhood. It'll have job training, a food bank, after-school programs, and a free clinic. Nora's mouth dropped open. Here? In this neighborhood? Why not? Grayson said. This is where help is needed most. At the top of the plans, she saw the name, Hayes House. Hayes House, she said, confused. That's you, Grayson said. We're naming it after you. Nora shook her head. You can't do that. I didn't do anything special. Grayson looked at her kindly. You saved my life with your last $8. That's special. He handed her another folder. Your health insurance starts on day 1. It covers everything, including Ella's asthma medicine. No copays, no deductibles. You'll never have to choose between groceries and medicine again. Nora covered her mouth and started crying again. Thank you, she whispered. Grayson waited patiently until she could breathe. Then he stood up and handed her a black vest. On the back was a silver crown with wings. This isn't a biker vest, Grayson said. It's a Ava's Legacy vest. It means family. You're one of us now. Nora put it on, her hands shaking. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. For the first time in a long time, she saw hope, strength, and pride. Your first job, Grayson said, is to find someone here who needs help. Nora thought for only a moment. Mrs. Green, 3 doors down. She's old and can't afford her heart medicine. I saw her cutting her pills in half. Then let's go, Grayson said. They walked down the street together. Nora, Grayson, and Ryder. Mrs. Green opened her door, surprised. Nora, dear, what's going on? Nora smiled. I brought some friends. We want to help. They sat in her small living room while Grayson explained Ava's legacy. Mrs. Green listened quietly, tears forming in her eyes. What do you need most right now? Grayson asked. My heart pills, she said softly. I can't afford them anymore. I've been cutting them in half, but I'm almost out. Grayson pulled out his phone and made a call. We'll have your prescription filled and delivered today, he said. 3 months' supply. No cost to you. Mrs. Green grabbed Nora's hand and cried. You did this for me? We did this together, Nora said, smiling. When they left, Nora turned to Grayson. This is the best job I'll ever have. I know, Grayson said, smiling. Because you understand what it means to need help. And now, you get to be the one who helps. As the sun set that day, the rumble of the motorcycles faded in the distance, but the feeling they left behind stayed forever. The street that once feared them now felt like family. And Nora Hayes, who once had nothing, now had everything that truly mattered. Love, hope, and a future. They walked back to Nora's apartment, where the party kept going. The neighbors were laughing. The bikers told funny and brave stories. Ella played happily with her new toys. And for the first time in 3 years, Nora Hayes didn't worry about tomorrow. She knew tomorrow would be okay. No, better than okay. It would be beautiful. 6 months later, everything was different. But the changes didn't happen all at once. They came little by little. The day after the bikers came, someone put a video online. The video showed Nora standing in her street, surrounded by 100 big motorcycles from the group called the Hells Angels. The video spread everywhere on the internet. People started saying things. Some said, she's showing off bad people. Others wrote, those bikers are criminals. Some said, this looks fake. And others said, no, this is real. Nora read all the comments. Every single one. The mean ones made her heart hurt. Her friend Tasha called and said, ignore them, honey. They don't know the truth. But the mean comments kept coming for weeks. Then something amazing happened. People who had been helped by Ava's legacy started sharing their own stories. They made posts, videos, and kind messages. A man in Ohio said, they gave me a home when I had nothing. A mom in Pennsylvania said, they paid for my daughter's surgery. She's alive because of them. An old man in Michigan said, they saved my house. Soon, the comments changed. People started writing things like, I was wrong about the bikers. This is what real kindness looks like. My faith in people is back. Within a month, the hashtag Lily's legacy was everywhere. Month 1 *. Nora sat at her new desk in the Ava's legacy office. A shiny nameplate said, Nora Hayes, Community Outreach Coordinator. She helped families, made phone calls, and visited homes. Ella was happy in her new school. Her inhaler was always ready and full. No more fear. No more skipping medicine. Month 2 *. An empty lot near Nora's home became a busy construction site. They were building the Hayes house. At the groundbreaking ceremony, Nora stood with a shovel, surrounded by bikers and neighbors. News cameras filmed her. A reporter asked, how does it feel to have a community center named after you? Nora smiled. It's not about me. It's about what happens when people choose kindness instead of fear. Month 3 *. Nora met Andre, a 32-year-old man who had been a soldier. He was living in his car. They sat in a coffee shop. Nora asked, "What do you need?" Andre said, "A place to sleep, a job, a reason to keep going." Within a week, Ava's legacy helped him find a home and a job program. 3 months later, Andre had his own apartment and paycheck. He came back crying, shaking Nora's hand. "You gave me a second chance," he said. Nora smiled. "No, you gave yourself a second chance. I just opened the door." Month 4 asterisk. Hayes' house opened. There was a big ribbon-cutting day. Nora and Ella cut the ribbon together, laughing. Inside, the building was full of people and life. A job center, a food bank, an after-school program, and a free clinic. On the first day, 43 people came for help. All 43 left with something they needed. Month 5 asterisk. Many people shared stories of how Ava's legacy helped them. Daniela, a mom of 3, said, "They paid for my daughter's surgery. Without them, I would have lost her." Mr. Bennett, the old man who once yelled at Grayson, said, "They paid my property taxes. I still have my home." A teenage girl said, "The after-school program helped me get a scholarship. I'm going to be a doctor." Month 6 asterisk. Nora now had a team of 5 workers. Each one was someone she had helped before. Now they were helping others. Ava's legacy grew to 3 new towns. Each town built its own Hayes house. Grayson got better and spent his days visiting families and shaking hands. One day he told Nora, "You know what Ava would say if she saw this?" Nora asked, "What?" He smiled. She'd say, "Daddy, you did good." Then some movie makers came. They wanted to make a short film about Nora's story. Sitting in front of the camera, Nora said, "A year ago, I had $8 and a choice, to help a stranger or feed my daughter. I chose to help. That choice saved both of us." The video went online. In a week, 5 million people watched it. One day, Nora went back to the gas station where it all began. She asked the manager if she could put up a small sign outside. He said yes. The sign read, "Here, a small act of kindness changed everything. Ava's legacy." The gas station worker who once told her to leave Grayson alone saw her again. He walked up and said softly, "I remember you. I told you not to help him. I was wrong. I've seen what you built. I'm sorry." Nora smiled and said, "We all learn. That's what matters." This time, when she left the gas station, she wasn't alone. She had a family, a community, and a reason to keep going. And it all started with $8 and a choice. 1 year later asterisk. Hayes House held a big anniversary party. The building was full of families, bikers, and neighbors. There were balloons and a big banner that said, "1 year of kindness." Nora stood at a small podium. Ella sat in the front row, smiling proudly. Nora said, "A year ago, I spent my last $8 to help a stranger. I didn't know who he was. I just knew he needed help." The room clapped. Nora continued, "People told me I was making a mistake, that I was bringing trouble. And for a moment, I believed them. But I learned something. Kindness is never a mistake, even when it costs you everything. Especially then." People clapped louder. Some cried. After the speech, a young woman walked up to Nora. She looked nervous. "Hi," she said. "My name is Chloe. You helped my mom 6 months ago. She had cancer and couldn't pay for treatment." Nora thought for a moment. "Mrs. Martin?" she asked. Chloe nodded, tears in her eyes. "She's better now. The doctors say it's a miracle. But it wasn't a miracle. It was you. It was Ava's legacy." They hugged and cried together. Then Mrs. Carter came over, smiling kindly. She said, "Baby, I need to say something." "What is it?" Nora asked. "I'm sorry for judging you that morning, and for judging them." She pointed to the bikers. "You taught me it's never too late to change." Nora squeezed her hand. You were just trying to protect me. It's okay. Mrs. Carter said, Still, I was wrong. I'm glad you didn't listen to me. That night, after the party, Nora walked home. She liked walking. It gave her time to think. As she passed another gas station, she saw a young man sitting on the curb. He looked sad. His head was in his hands. Hey, Nora said softly. You okay? He looked up. He was about 22, with tired eyes. My car broke down, he said. I don't have money for a tow. I need to pick up my son from daycare soon. Nora opened her purse and took out $50. She handed it to him. He said, No, I can't take this. Yes, you can, Nora said. Get your car towed. Get your son. The young man looked at the money like it was magic. I don't even know you. You don't have to, Nora said, giving him Ava's legacy card. When you're okay again, help someone else. Pass it on. And if you ever need help, call that number. Tears ran down his face. Thank you. I won't forget this. Nora smiled. I know you won't. She walked away with a happy heart. A year ago, she was the one who needed help. Now she was the one helping others. The circle of kindness kept going. Kindness makes more kindness. And somewhere, Nora knew Ava was smiling from above, proud of her mom. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more kind and powerful stories. Watch our next video for another unforgettable journey. And share this story with someone who needs it today.